A lot of the men I work with have never experienced real sex because they started using porn when they were very young. Average age of first exposure is 10, 11, I believe. For me, it was 9 years old. For many of the guys I work with, 6 years old to 16 years old. And when they start using porn heavily at a young age, before ever experiencing real intimacy, before going on a date, before kissing someone, before experiencing the innocent excitement of getting closer to someone they're attracted to, they've consumed hundreds of hours of hardcore, extreme pornographic material, and they've trained their brains to be desensitized to sexuality, and a real experience with a real person now feels alien to them. And they develop porn-induced sexual dysfunction, like erectile dysfunction, before they ever have a chance to even try having sex. And when they do, it's a terrible experience because they're not able to get aroused and maintain their arousal during that experience. For others that I work with, they have been able to have successful sex, but never without the influence of pornography on their brains. The way that they see and experience sex and intimacy is deeply changed and colored by their consumption of pornography. And men, a lot of the men that I work with have no idea what it's like to be an adult, much less to be an adult in a romantic relationship without the influence of pornography on their own brains and on their relationship. It's like they've learned to drive just by watching Fast and the Furious. And if you're familiar with that series of movies, it gets progressively more ridiculous as it goes on. People are jumping cliffs and strapping rocket boosters onto cars and flying into space. And all that's fine in the Fast and the Furious because we get thousands and thousands of chances every day to see real cars driving on real roads in a safe manner. And so we can recognize that the Fast and the Furious isn't like real life, and we're not trying to emulate it on the roads. But most people don't see thousands of experiences of real, healthy intimacy and love and sex in their lives. And so they think, consciously or subconsciously, that what they see in pornography is what they should be emulating in their own bedrooms. Recovery from addiction to porn or another sex addiction is different. It's more complex, it's more complicated, and it can be more difficult in many ways than recovering from a substance addiction or from a gambling addiction, because you don't have to gamble. You can just abstain completely from all gambling, and that's simple, it's clear cut. It might still not be easy, but it is at least simple. With substances, it's the same thing. You don't need alcohol. You might feel like you do if you're an alcoholic. You don't need substances like weed, nicotine, any of that. And it's simple. If you recognize you're an addict and you want to recover, never do those things again. Simple, clear cut. Not so much with a sex-related addiction or a porn addiction, because most people do want to have a sex life. They don't want to banish their sexuality or cut themselves off from it entirely, but they need to relearn how to engage with their sexuality in a healthy way. It's more similar to disordered eating than it is a substance addiction in that way. Because if you have an eating disorder, you're either binge eating, you're anorexic, whatever the disorder is, the solution isn't to stop eating food altogether and never have to engage with any food-related behaviors again. The solution is more complex. You have to rebuild your relationship with food, with eating, and make it a healthy one in order to nourish your body and your spirit. And the same is true of a sex-related addiction. I have a list here of some of the toxic and inaccurate lessons that porn teaches people and may have taught you. Starting with, your penis is too small. When we look at professional pornography, we see a lot of big penises. And that's just because those people have been selected for that job because, in part, their anatomy fit the role. But it gives you an inaccurate perception of average penis size and the penis size that is required to have a satisfying sexual experience for both you and your partner. And whether it's on a conscious level or a subconscious level, it makes a lot of men feel inadequate because they're looking at the equivalent of like NBA players and comparing their basketball playing skills and their vertical height to those NBA players and thinking, wow, I am really short and I suck at basketball. And they're thinking the same things either on a conscious or subconscious level when they watch porn. And that can be toxic, and it can give a lot of guys self-esteem issues and make them self-conscious when they get naked for the first time, or even not for the first time. It can be pervasive throughout years of their life, as long as they're watching and consuming pornography or buying into what they've seen in porn as worthy of replication. Number two, that sex is a performance. In porn, they're performing for the camera. They're making it visually stimulating. They're changing positions a lot. There's a lot of big movements happening. There's a lot of large vocalizations going on. There's a lot of stimulation happening for the viewer. And that's not because the actors themselves are just doing what feels right to them. It's because they're performing. It is a performance. Pornography is a performance, but real sex is not. There's probably not anyone else in the room that you're performing for, unless, like many pornography addicts do, or pornography users do, they start making their own porn, they're filming themselves because they're emulating what they've seen in pornography. They want to be that performer. But in real, simple, beautiful intimacy and sex, you're not performing for anyone, even for each other. You are experiencing something together and exploring each other. And that is very different. That presents very differently. There's maybe not a lot of big movements. Maybe it's small movements, it's slow movements. Maybe it's quiet. It's just for you two. It's just something that you two get to experience, and you're not making it a bombastic display for anybody. And when people consume pornography long before they experience real sex, a lot of men think that to please a woman, I have to do what this guy is doing. But in real life, most women don't want that. That feels weird. They want something real. And a lot of women, especially older women who perhaps have experienced sex with men who weren't hooked on porn, because a lot of younger women have not, they can tell. It's easy to tell. And that's not to shame you, that's just to show you that pornography is not a good teacher of real sexuality, and you should endeavor to learn from other sources, primarily by keeping an open mind and just following your own desires and communicating effectively with your partner when you have real intimacy and sex. Third, the length of time that sex lasts in pornography is often misleading. Super long sex isn't always better. Yes, there's a balance. You don't want to have 30-second sex usually, but most people would enjoy a more moderate length of a sexual encounter rather than like an hour or 2 hours that you might see in a porn film. Pornography normalizes extreme sex. Okay, in pornography, the people who are consuming that material, they get desensitized, just like maybe you who have been watching this have been desensitized by the material that you've been consuming. Over years, that desensitization leads to them not being interested in the more vanilla stuff that they used to consume, and they seek a more powerful experience, a higher high, by finding more extreme content. And the producers of this content and those that distribute this content online, they know this. And so they drip feed you, they put you into this funnel that leads to more and more extreme content. And so if you've been consuming this online material for a long time, you've probably seen very extreme stuff that most people who aren't hooked on porn and have gone down the same funnel are not interested in or would be repulsed by. And I'm not demonizing any particular sex act. If you and a partner are both enthusiastically interested in a fetish, a kink, a sex act, then go for it. If you're consenting adults and you're enthusiastic about it, I'm all for it. But a lot of time you bring that expectation as a porn user of this is what's normal in sex from all the extreme porn that you've been watching, and you bring that into a relationship or a sexual encounter with someone who hasn't gone down that same funnel, and it can create an ugly mismatch. A woman should always be ready and receptive for vaginal, oral, or anal sex is another lesson that porn teaches. But this is simply not the case in real life unless you have already built a level of comfort and communication with the partner that you know, like, okay, my partner is always ready for this. And even then, there will be exceptions. So you have to be open and perceptive to the signals that that person gives off, or have developed good communication with that person in order to know when they're not into it. And most of the time in most relationships, it's not always the right time for sexy time. Okay, you need to be in tune with how your partner is feeling and thinking, and think about meeting their needs and bringing them into slowly that mood of intimacy and connection and sexuality. Rather than with porn as a consumer, it's all about you. It's all about how am I feeling, and you use the material just like a lot of the male performers in porn use the female performers. And a real relationship, a real healthy sexual relationship, is not about using each other. Another lesson is a man should always be ready and aroused for sex at any time. But in real life, you need to warm up, just like any other human. You might not be in the mood right away, but that can happen when you just follow your instincts and your desires, and you allow yourself to enjoy kissing, and you enjoy like getting closer to each other, and you build over time, and your arousal will build. It doesn't need to be instant, and it doesn't need to be constant either. In real life, for relationships, erections come and go, and that's fine. You don't need to get worked up about it. And a lot of people who are in recovery from porn-induced erectile dysfunction do get worked up about it because they're very self-conscious of what's happening. But in real life, it's fine to lose an erection. It's fine for the erection to go down. Maybe that's a better way of phrasing it. You relax for a while, you chill, and if you don't let it get to you, then a few minutes later, you probably have an erection again because you're just getting back in touch with what you want, what your body wants right now. Maybe you need to take a break, get a drink of water, come back, you start kissing and cuddling again, laughing, talking to each other, looking into each other's eyes. Your erection comes back. Maybe she starts touching you again. The erection comes back, and that's fine. Erections can come and go. And it's also perfectly normal for you as a man not to want sex at any particular time. You might not be in the mood, and that's okay. There might be other things on your mind, other things going on in your life. You might be hungry, you might be tired. You don't have to be constantly ready to turn on like you're a sex machine. It's normal to have casual, unprotected sex. You might learn that lesson from porn, but in real life, that leads to some pretty severe consequences. And there are a lot of STIs going around, and especially if you're having casual sex with multiple people, you're not being careful, you're not using protection, you're not getting tested. It's very easy and very common to get a disease. Hopefully it's one that's curable, but maybe it's one that's not. And that can have life-altering consequences. And when you watch porn, you don't see those conversations about, look, have you been tested recently? Have you had any symptoms? You don't see the conversations about protection. Should we use a condom? Yes, I think we should use a condom. You don't see condom use. And that is a toxic thing to bring into real life. It can have major consequences. And as well, pregnancy, unexpected, unplanned pregnancy, of course. That it's normal to have casual sex without discussing desires and boundaries first. Rarely in porn will you see those conversations, but in real life, they should be common. They should be something you expect before you have sex with someone, is to have a lot of communication about what sex means to them, what they like, what they don't like, how they best communicate during sex, whether with verbal communication or with touch, and what their particular signs and signals should mean. And if you don't have those conversations, then you're flying blind. It's like you're driving, like you're used to driving a car. Let's say you had a relationship and you're used to all the signs and signals and boundaries and desires that other person had. And yes, I'm making the metaphor that they're a car and they're used to driving that car. But this new person, it's not just a different make or model of car. It's like a car designed by another species or a country that never had any contact with any other car-making countries. Like, it's still a car, it still drives, it still gets you places, but the methods of how you start, how you stop, how you turn might be completely different from what you're used to. And you need to refer to the owner's manual and talk to that person before you just get in that car and peel out, because you might end up in a ditch somewhere. That was a weird metaphor, but hope you're still here with me. That orgasm is the goal of sex, or that it's a requirement for men or for women every time you have sex. Otherwise, sex is a failure. Orgasm does not have to be the goal of sex. You can have a wonderful sexual experience without either person orgasming, or with one person orgasming but the other not. Orgasm is not everything. And if you're too focused on that goal, then you're not enjoying the journey, and you're not really experiencing sexual intimacy to the levels that I think you are capable of. And it's perfectly fine as a man or as a woman to have a sexual experience and not have an orgasm and still be satisfied by that. And if you're a slave to your need for your own orgasm, then you should, I think, learn more about karezza, which is a style of lovemaking that intentionally does not engage with orgasm or ejaculation. You don't have to do that every time, but knowing that you're capable of that and being able to enjoy that method of sexuality, I think is a big advantage and will open up new doors for you and new ways to appreciate sexual intimacy. Porn may teach you that a man's value lies in the number of his sexual partners or his ability to satisfy those sexual partners. And for especially a young person who's never had sex, that's a pretty toxic foundation to build on, because you're feeling like you have low worth because you have little sexual experience, and you want to get sexual experience as fast as possible and use the bodies of other humans to build your own foundation of self-worth on. And that's a pretty toxic way to go about building your self-worth. That a woman's value lies in the attractiveness of her body parts and her ability to bring you sexual pleasure. Of course, if you're pursuing a sexual romantic relationship, you want to be able to satisfy each other and bring each other sexual pleasure, but that often happens over time as you get to know each other, mind, body, and spirit, and as you learn each other and get better and better at experiencing satisfying sexual and intimate experiences together. Not in like the first night, oh, it wasn't that great, so I'm not going to pursue anything with her. And in pornography, we just don't see the nuance of human relationships. It's so divorced from real humanity and real relationships. You are doing yourself a disservice if you're learning about sex and relationships and intimacy from pornography. All right, we're not done with this list though. That sexual relationships are transactional. I get something, you get something, then we go our separate ways. That does happen in real life, but are those the experiences that you're going to cherish, that are going to change your life for the better? No. Those experiences in which you get to know someone intimately and you see their love building and attraction building for you as yours builds for them, and you build a longer lasting connection with them over time. Those are the experiences that really have a lasting impact on your sense of self and on the quality of your life. That sex is an act of aggression. In pornography, because of the desensitization of the consuming audience, most of pornography is aggressive. It's very aggressive. And also because it's more visually stimulating, and because your audience is desensitized, you need to stimulate them in as many ways as possible to get their brain juices flowing, to get them transfixed on your content. And you do that in part by introducing degradation, abuse, aggression, slapping, manhandling, stuff that is dubious in terms of consent. It might be a fantasy of non-consent, but it is still portraying that. And if that's normalized for you as a young person consuming hours and hours and years of internet porn, that is a toxic thing to bring into a real relationship. One thing that every porn addict I've ever worked with has had in common is that they use porn not just because it's interesting or because it feels good, but over time they start to use porn more and more as an emotional regulator. It's a solution for emotions that they don't want to feel. They might feel embarrassment, they might feel shame, they might feel stress or loneliness or boredom, and whatever they're feeling that they don't want to feel, it's a temporary solution to just go to porn because it makes you feel something else and it pushes away all those other feelings. But of course, this is not a solution. It's a temporary band-aid that only, maybe it's more like morphine, you know? It's a temporary solution that allows you not to feel the pain, but over time, the morphine gets less and less effective, and you're now getting hooked on morphine, which is gonna cause you more pain, a lot more pain in the long run. Now, you shouldn't be treating real sex in the same way. Now, you absolutely can find comfort and solace in your partner, and sex can be a part of that, but it's not about, I'm gonna use your body for pleasure and my orgasm and then go my own separate way. That's not what it should be like. Real sex should be about creating memorable, fantastic experiences, about bonding with your partner, about building something together, building that relationship, about physical pleasure, yes, absolutely, but as part of the whole continuum, not as an end in and of itself. I'll end this video by posing a few questions that you should ask yourself about any sexual experience in order to help yourself determine whether it was a healthy one or an unhealthy one. And the first question is, am I proud of what just happened? Will I cherish this memory? And does my partner feel the same? Are they going to be proud of what just happened, and are they going to cherish that memory? And if the answer to any of those is no, that's a red flag. Since you're still here watching at the very end of this video, that tells me that you're serious about recovering from the effects of pornography on your life and building a better next chapter of your life. I've worked with many hundreds of men hooked on porn, struggling with porn-induced sexual dysfunction, and I've helped them recover over the years. And I know from all of that and from my own personal experience what it takes to truly leave this cycle behind and build something better for yourself. And so, since you're here at the end and I know you're probably serious about changing your life, I want to tell you, go down to the description below. There's going to be a link to watch a video. After you watch that video, you'll fill out a form that tells me about yourself. That form will go directly to me, and I'll be able to give you a personal recovery recommendation. Good luck to you.